with COVID-19, and some are succeeding, some are still struggling. This is something. You served 2 terms as a councillor, an executive board member at the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. And prior to that, you cut your teeth as a manager in the competition at the regulator, and also served as acting senior manager policy analysis and development. I truly believe that you must be a passionate public servant, and I see here your desire to improve the lives of citizens of South Africa. You have a master's in business leadership from the University of South Africa, a BProc and an LLB degree from the University of Fort Hare. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you, Nomvuyiso, to this conversation. And the floor is yours as our panelists, our participants increase and join this conversation. I'm so keen to hear what you have to share with us this morning. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Khubeshni, for such a wonderful introduction. Some of the things that a person goes through, we tend to forget. And good morning to everyone that has made it this morning. Indeed, Khubeshni and the participants at this meeting, this position that I've taken over since last year, April, couldn't have come at a very opportune time for me, and also for the world and South Africa. And I'll tell you, just to contextualize it, as I took over for this position in April last year, then I was told, hold it, you need to prepare a country's response in terms of the digital readiness for COVID-19. So I left that project management office. To date, Khubeshni, I haven't had leave since then, because you will be instructed that we even planned at the time, foolishly so, because we didn't know what COVID-19 was all about. We planned that we needed to have infrastructure in local government offices, and we wrote a piece of paper for Minister Nkosazana Zuma to make sure that, because we never thought there was going to be a total lockdown. So when the lockdown happened on the 23rd of March, we were like, oops, we had to rearrange, make sure that you'll hear in my talk around spectrum availability, that there's spectrum available. If you remember, when COVID started, there were a lot of drop calls. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Kind of thing, because we planned, in terms of our planning in South Africa, we always plan for purposes of connectivity around city centers, CBDs, your Sandton, your Cape Town CBD. If you are outside, let's say in Cape Town, you are off at the Strand, you are not going to hear your data call. So we had to make those plans and then make sure that the spectrum that is deployed on a temporary basis during the period of COVID-19. And now we are moving to this period of the third wave, which I must say, I hope here that people from other provinces besides the Western Cape, that we've noted as the department that very few provinces and local municipalities take the opportunity of free SMSs. If you recall, when COVID started in South Africa, the lockdown, there used to be free SMSs that would say, watch out, this is what needs to happen. So now we are working with the government of the Western Cape to make sure that there is the vaccine rollout. They receive free SMSs to specific areas such as Khayelitsha, Nyanga, and the likes. So we do that work as well. This is part, I wear 3 hats within the team, but that is the COVID response. And knowing the numbers in Gauteng today are sitting in excess of 5,000, it is instructive that the Gauteng government departments take the opportunity to inform their citizens timelessly and not only rely on medical aid and the like. So we're doing all that work, and it has been quite exciting. So I just wanted to start off to say that was the context. Then I moved to the work that we're doing as the Presidential Commission for our Project Management Office. We have published a strategic implementation plan. This document in the main seeks to tell South Africa, because remember, President Ramaphosa, you may recall, had set up the Presidential Commission for Fourth Industrial Revolution, which he was the chairperson. And the chairperson, the deputy chairperson was Professor Marwala. We have from SALCA, we have Olile, the CEO of SALCA. He was a member. It was a 33-member body. Then their work stopped last year because they delivered what we call the blueprint for South Africa. But this blueprint needs to be implemented. So our function is to took the blueprint and created a plan that says who is supposed to do what according to this blueprint. And we recognize that a number of people didn't even understand the basic principles of what was required, let's say in law enforcement, in health. What are the changes that we need to have in order for us to realize the 4IR journey? It's been a reiterative process, in the sense that everyone thought 4IR will come with its own budget. No, it doesn't. So you have to, I'll make the example, Department of Trade and Industry. Within their portfolio, they had to rearrange to say, how are we going to respond to 4IR? And then we said to them, look, these are the priorities that have been set out for you in the 4IR blueprint. So we would like you to give us a plan that says you will implement this, and they have created a structure, an office that says for automatives, for changes in law, because they need to change legislation, for responsiveness in terms of BBBEE and participation of Black people and women. How are they going to do that? So we have received this, and we are quite impressed by what they have done. So that's the one part, that's the Department of Trade and Industry. And so far as our department now, what we've done, you would note that our department were responsible for communications and digital technology. So we are focused on the digital skills. As of last year, Minister Maida published the National Digital and Future Skills Strategy. This advises all government departments and institutions of higher learning as to how to ensure that Black people, young people are skilled, and what are the skills are supposed to be at. Department of Women, for example, we have put them on a program through one of our institutes, which is called NEMISA. We have an institute within TCTT, and said, identify at least 100 women that will be training for this institute, will be training for a period of a year in new skills. And these women, this is the criteria across all provinces. The call was made out, and we received participants for this, and we set a cap for the 3 major provinces, which is Gauteng, KZN, and Cape Town. We put a cap, and then we wanted to attract in other provinces. But ironically, we saw a lot of, I say people are my age, because I'm over 40, I'm 45, and in terms of women. And we saw a lot of young men participating, people from the ages of 19 to 35. But younger women have not been participating. And in this regard, we said, we reached out to Department of DSI, Science and Innovation, and we said something is wrong. We know that you are running a program called STEM, but there is this gap that we have identified for women that are, let's say, they are in creatives in our space, women that are in creative, women that are in indigenous languages, that we see young men, let's say, almost all people that are running a podcast in South Africa, inevitably, most of them have been trained through the program of the NEMISA that we're offering. And most of them are men. And yet we say, this is the representation we have. We want, that's the first thing. Then the second thing that the department has attempted to do, but now we are in court, is to license the 5G spectrum through our regulator, which is the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa. 5G is what is enabling us to have intelligible calls, which is video calls. It's what is going to enable us to do machine learning. You know, the things that people will be theorizing about. When you think about it, 20 years ago, I speak for myself, when I came to Gauteng, I never thought a video call was possible. I thought it was in science fiction. So we wanted that. However, Telkom, due to some finding that they made internally, challenged the licensing of ICASA. ICASA had set aside 30% of the spectrum on its own for women. I will need to say this again. Unfortunately, the women group from what ICASA has said as a report were late in terms of submitting. Not only were they late, which shows the ills of what we're suffering as women in South Africa, did not have the application fee, which was 1.5 million, because how many Black women do you know have that line? And it's a non-refundable amount, by the way. So you had that as well. And ironically for me, I said, it's actually a good thing, because imagine if had they paid the 1.5 million and then ICASA tells them, in any case you are late, it would have been money down the drain. And this is a group of women, about 15 of them, that set up this consortium. But I was saying to our team, but to come up with a document that is 300 pages, having hired consultants, those people, those ladies have spent a lot of money coming up with that bid that didn't come. So there is that opportunity that ICASA is going to be republishing the issuing of the 5G spectrum. That is after the court case has been done, has been finalized. Then this will ensure the deployment of 5G networks everywhere. Then also with in our space, this is also an impact in the short term. We have what we call the forgotten province when we are talking internally. The forgotten province, which is Northern Cape. So we have a program called Expansion of Broadband Connectivity in the Northern Cape. We are using the SA Connect and one of our entities, Broadband Infraco. A tender is going to be coming out, calling out for people, especially in that province, to participate in order to ensure that there is broadband connectivity in the Northern Cape province. Northern Cape is one of those provinces that still has 2G, literal 2G, not even 3G. And I'm talking about Kimberley and not even the outlying areas. And we're going to use as well the square kilometer array program, which is sitting at Carnarvon, which has been built with the Department of Science and Innovation in order to ensure that this happens. And we are working very closely with the DBSA in terms of funding and making sure that the people of Northern Cape participate in line with the programs of women. And then we are doing new things. This will be with SETA. We still want to see how it will work, to be honest with you. It's what we call hyperscale data centers. So hyperscale data centers, it's about having data and information stored within South Africa. As you know, that in South Africa, our data is stored elsewhere. Think about Google. Where is your information? Think about any other search engine that you are using, your email and your bank. You do not know where they store the information. So let's say if you bank with a FNB, you would know that your information sits somewhere, but where is this somewhere? Where is this cloud? So we want South Africa to have a hyperscale data centers. This is also contained in the PCFYI report, and this has to be owned by South Africans wholly because data, as you would have heard, is the new gold. So as I can go on and on about this, but at the crux of it, it's what we are doing as the department. I can share with what other departments have shared with us that are planning to do this year after we've told them how they need to improve their offerings insofar as involving communities in the 4IR journey that they're doing. So, for example, we are having a discussion with Department of Justice that if we are looking at POPIA, the one that we are all struggling with, that we need as in South POPIA is almost like we had it quite late in the game. Everywhere globally, everyone has a chief data officer, which is responsible for all the data of South Africa. So if the information regulator has to take on this function, it cannot be reactive, as you would have seen the whole issues around the fights with Google, not Google, with WhatsApp, when WhatsApp changes its rules and Facebook. How do you make sure that as a country we have rules around data, because our data is contained elsewhere? Then the last thing in our space as the department, we're dealing with the digital economy master plan. This is the most exciting plan ever because it's the only plan that has an implementation plan and has, let's say, software developers. How many women do you want to participate? And in terms of SMMEs, you want them to be a big business. We have categorized it so much that we are getting pushbacks from network operators in South Africa, that because we want women to participate in that space. So I'll pause there for now, because the other stuff I will be talking to what other departments are saying or what they are planning short term. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm aware, Noviso, that we have in our audience largely women councillors, leaders at a local level. And, you know, a lot of the issues that local government deals with when it comes to ICT, data, digitization, they tend to be a lot of bread and butter issues. They tend to be issues of access. I mean, I recall us, Selga, at the start of the COVID pandemic, just asking simple questions like, do you have data to connect to this meeting? Are you able to take the time? What are you connecting with? You know, those kinds of simple pieces. And together with this, I'm aware that women generally, and when we look at some of the articles emerging from Ferial Haffajee and other commentators, we've been knocked back at least 10 years on all of the indicators that we use to mark the progress or the equality indexes of women. And I'm really interested about how some of these pieces, so the NAMISA piece, NAMISA participants is the National Electronic Media Institute of South Africa. I hear about the 5G, the licensing spectrum. I'm listening about the piece in the Northern Cape, the Infraco opportunity, the piece around CETA, the opportunities with the Department of Justice. Where does local government slot in here? And let's start there. Where does local government find its feet, find its resonance with some of these initiatives? And in this piece, you know, what are you experiencing are some of the challenges? And maybe we can actually help you out here. I mean, I'm looking at who we have in the room right now. Maybe it would be useful for some of our attendees to either pop in the chat or raise your hands to share with you some of the really basic challenges that councillors have when it comes to digitization, to using technology as an enabler, to being able to have access to ICTs. So let me actually, while you're thinking about these pieces that might be relevant for local government, let's go to our room, guys. If you can pick your hands up, or it might be a little bit of a technology a thing to switch you over from a voice perspective, but let's see. I'm curious, what can we share with Nomvuyiso, who's working at this really strategic level in national government, working with all of these programs? She's sharing now about how it's difficult to find even young women to participate. It's such a pity in social media pieces to upskill themselves, Nomvuyiso. What are your experiences, councillors? What do you have as evidence to share with national government to say, look, this is where we're at local government. This is what we need help with. This is where we'd like you to move policy. This is where the policy is falling down for us. Let me hear your voices for a little bit. Oh, and I see we've got something in question and answers. Irene says, it is so sad that all these services always roll out in big cities and then the rural areas are forgotten about. We live in the dark ages. This is so true, Irene. Often, and especially with regards to education, these areas need digitization most. Yes, we hardly have decent signal here, and that is 25 years down the line. This is from Irene Nomvuyiso, and let's hear some more. Let's hear some more. So you know, there almost seems to be a disconnect for me, Nomvuyiso, that there's these amazing things happening at a national level, at a policy level, and yet at a local level, the challenges are that they are really this plane. It's almost like a little bit of a digital disconnect even. I'm sure you use the term digital divide a great deal in your work, and I guess what we want to try and avoid from this perspective is to make sure that we don't create a digital divide, for instance, from a local perspective when it comes to some of these national pieces, or from a big city perspective to a small municipality. What are some of the other pieces, guys? No, so maybe while some of those hands come in, I'm looking. What are your thoughts on that? What do you do when a councillor says to you, you know, I hear you, you know, this is all fantastic, but guys, you know, we're struggling to get email. How do you help? How does the policy help? How does the strategic power of national government help us?
Thank you. The beauty about how our legislation is captured insofar as local government is that our minister and Minister of COGTA have to have a cooperation agreement that sets out how we are supposed to, as I don't want to say regulate, how are we supposed to build infrastructure in local government. So for the past, Irene, to your question, thank you, Councillor. For the past 20 years, we've had a disjointed approach as to how each municipality handles issues of, e.g., wayleaves. When I say wayleaves, I mean, how does a network operator come to a specific area to build a network? Those rules, because they have to be agreed between the two ministers, and the agreement has been updated as of last year, around just I think after when minister came back from leave. Because we don't have a uniform, I'll use the uniform standard across municipalities, other municipalities are found wanting. This is the conversation that I'm looking forward to with the CEO of SALGA, because we are saying to him, look, that is where each and every person, when I say each and every person, I mean Vodacom, MTN, Rain, and they'll say Cape Town has its own rules. You go to Gqeberha has its own rules, and there is no consistency as to how to apply for them to roll out a network. So let's say, for instance, I'll make the example that when I was at ICASA, one simple example, Etuwa, a network operator said, I can roll out infrastructure in this area, but the only in order for me to roll out infrastructure, I need access to the electricity grid. And the electricity grid was set out, I don't know how many kilometers, I'm far from Etuwa, and it was not owned by this city. So this became, it took about 2 years for them to resolve this issue. So at the crux of it, Irene, I think there has to be, because the ministers have already spoken, it needs to cascade down to say, at local government then, how do we make sure everyone has the same piece of the pie? It's easy for me, and I'll say this selfishly, to deal with provincial government, because I know with provincial government, things are going to work in a specific way, but there's a lot of cooperation agreements that are required in local government. And I see this even here with the city of Johannesburg, that the Sandton Chamber of Business deals with things differently compared to the CBD, the one that is based in the CBD. So you have that disjuncture of us not having uniformity. And I'm still have to master as to how we deal with it over and above what has been set out at a policy level. Then you have, so it's, and I'll tell you how the opposite of how easy it is in local government. Then you have, in the space that we're working in, broadcasting, it's so easy for me to issue a radio license for a person to be a broadcaster, because there the rules are very clearly defined in terms of districts, right? And we know this, that as the regulator has certainty that the rules are uniform, whether I go to Kukomani or I'm in Stainsburg, between Gerrit Dam, the rules are the same. So I think that's where the crux when it comes to new technologies, that we have not found a rule and policy and frameworks and bylaws that make it easy for people to come and invest in areas, especially rural areas. Whereas in other areas in our space, we have made it easy. That's why I'm making the issue of broadcasting, because in broadcasting, the rules are clear. This broadcasting license, 80% has to be owned by South Africans. 80% has to be owned by that local community. So there is no question of if or but who is from where in that instance. So I think we need to improve on our rules of engagement in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I saw that Councillor Boltman had a hand up. And in order for us to hear your voice, Councillor, we're going to have to just bump you to a panelist. Lebo, can I get your help to do that, please? Can you just change the status of Councillor Boltman to a panelist, and then we can have a piece hear her voice?
I'm just trying to see how we spell the councillor's name. What is she logged in as?
Flora Maboa Boltman.
Excuse me?
Just keep. It's Flora Maboa Boltman. Just keep your hand up. Just put her hand is raised under attendees. We just have a look under attendees.
Got it.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Maboa. Maboa Boltman.
Oh, there.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you very
Hi.
much. Thank you very much, Kubeshni. And greetings to Nomvuyiso Bachi. and greetings to all councillors and participants who are here this morning. And thank you very much for this webinar. It's very important. As Nomvuyiso was speaking here, I was listening and most of the information, Kubeshni, is the information that we wanted to know of, and in fact, difficult to get. And when we started after lockdown, we were struggling to find our feet, struggling to run our meetings and all that, but we had to catch up. There was no time to waste. We had to catch up. Now we know how to now I'm speaking to you far, seated far and all that, and that works. But my request to Nomvuyiso is that I am pleased that they have, and I think it's an appointment, I don't know, but they will speak to the CEO and the like. But if we can collaborate, we have a SALGA Women's Commission where where only women councillors participate. And we get information from a number of other structures, and we learn and we impart, knowledge, information and all that. And listening here, we have young women councillors. Most of them, they're very clever in terms of using cell phones, but it ends there. In a number of what she was indicating on, I was thinking, if I wasn't 61, I was gonna call her immediately after this meeting. But now I'm saying, how do we then help each other? We're going for elections now. Obviously, councillors are now worried about being elected, but after elections, we must get them to streamline and get the information and participate, as the concern here is participation of young women. Now, our communities, they don't drive themselves, but they are led. So we need to lead them with information. We need to bring them under one roof, as we will be going for, as SALGA will be training new councillors not so long if we are going to go for elections, because I see the numbers are rising in terms of COVID, but I believe we will go for elections. In other words, we will be having new offices. It's again gonna be a struggle to get them to sit on webinars, to sit on such meetings. Now we will be, I don't know, the IT departments will be struggling to get all of them on to understand what is going on, and we must be there as leadership to assist them. Now, there is so much information that is given here by Nomvuyiso, so I'm asking myself, hey, at the end of the term, and we only hearing of a number of these issues today only, and I'm saying the issue of collaboration, we must work on that going forward. And I'm pleased that you're going to be speaking to the CEO, and but let us collaborate. Some issues that are concerning women, look at structures that are run by women. As I was saying, that we have the SALGA Women's Commission, and then we spread evangelists there, and we encourage women to start enrolling and making themselves available and all that. That's all I wanted to say, collaboration. Thank you very much, Kubeshni. And let me indicate while I'm here that I'm not going to be long with you all. I have another 10 o'clock visual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just on this piece about us going from one meeting to the next, Novi, so I'm sure it's your experience as well that the burden that women have faced with the onset of COVID and the introduction of us using these digital forms has been overwhelming. The already burdensome lives that a lot of our women councillors lead. Now you've added to that the space of coming into a home space from a work perspective, in addition to everything else. So I'm completely empathetic with Councillor Maboa Bultmann on this one. But thank you very much for these pieces, Councillor. And so Novice, there are a couple of things that are emerging that I'm curious about whether you have an opinion on. Firstly, she's absolutely right. We're going into local government elections, okay, and so this is a change. It's a change of term. It's an opportunity to bring in new voices. It's an opportunity for us to re-engage the system, and I think the invitation from the councillor is that there are structural pieces in place through SELGA and other pieces where you can get to this audience, you can test out some of your ideas, so that when you are making this intervention in the Northern Cape, you know that it's going to hit at a local level where our people live, work and play, because you've worked with that structure. There's also the piece, and this is this theme about so councillor talks about having young councillors, and we're all able to use the devices, right? But participation in the sector is something very different. And I'm so mindful. I'm holding this 1.5 million rands application fee, and I'll share something with you. Many years ago, in a different life, I applied to a consortium to contest a satellite pay TV license. And that 300,000 rands application fee that went to ICASA came from my bond. And it was just, there was no other place for it to come from. And of course, we weren't successful. But the fees, and you're absolutely right, the fees for the consultants, the time spent, I think it was almost a year's preparation to put in that 500-page application to ICASA at some stage. And so there just seems to me there's so many barriers to entry for women generally. And at a local level, I'm really curious about how it is that government helps and women in general try and overcome some of these pieces, so that we can stop being just consumers of digital applications and products, and we can start truly meaningfully participating in the industry. So that's the one piece. I'm also curious about whether there's possibilities for digital leaps for us. Okay, so I have this desire that when we go back to it sounds ridiculous to say a non-COVID space, but when we start to normalize some of our work, that we don't forget that we can do this. That I don't have to sit in traffic for an hour to get to Pretoria to have a meeting. I can actually do this. I can do this via an electronic platform. What are your hopes, Nobuiso, about how things will be different for our councillors, for our leaders, in using some of these digital pieces? Over to you. Nombuiso, are you there? Guys, just give us 2 seconds. I suspect that there's some load shedding gremlins in the mix, so we're just going to try and get a hold of Nombuiso via her cell phone. Lebo, I'm going to let you and Pam help us out with that. While we're doing that, okay, here she is. She's going to try and reconnect with her phone. Okay, sorry, I missed that part. Okay. So let's wait for her to come back in. Some other perspectives, guys. You've heard from Councillor Maboa Boltman. What other thoughts do you have around this area? I'm really excited about the NAMISA possibility, and I'm going to add to Pam's follow-up list to see whether some of those pieces, those skills development pieces, might be open to local government councillors, because NAMISA has some amazing programs, and I think that it would be wonderful if you could participate in them. So there was a piece of legislation that was passed last. She's back, fantastic. So Nomvuyiso, I'm hopeful that you heard the Councillor Boltman. Can I just ask, what did you hear? What was the last piece that you did hear, so I can give you a little quick recap? Nomvuyiso?
Thank you very much, Kubashni. I actually had to rejoin using my phone. So it was at the time she was coming. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh yes. I thought you couldn't hear me. So and then I joined. I tried to join seamlessly using the handset, so I couldn't get the crux of it was when you were recognizing her. Sorry about that.
No worries. Let me just very quickly give you a high profile piece. So what one of the pieces that you were sharing was that an effective way to reach women in local government is through the structures. And she landed in the room, the SELGA Women's Commission. So the invitation was for national government, for yourselves at the commission, to please make use of this. She desperately asked for cooperation, and she was very pleased to hear about the connection with the SELGA CEO as a point of departure. She noted that these councillors who are on the call today are reaching the end of their term. So this is a transition period, Nomvuyiso, and they're on their way out. But even as they're on their way out, they're really mindful of incoming councillors, of who might remain. And one of the pieces that she spoke about was the fact that she has a desire for councillors and for young people to move from the space of being users and consumers of digital technology to being participants in both the economic side, in the development side, in the STEM side, in the creation side, and curious about how it is that perhaps local leaders can play a role in that. And then, of course, she landed the fact that we're going into local government elections, where if we have any further lockdowns, we're really going to be leaning on digital communication, on electronic means of reaching people. And it's going to be difficult because we're going to try and reach people who perhaps do not have access. So any thoughts on any of these pieces, Nomvuyiso?
Thank you very much, and thank you for that. So I just want to maybe contextualize. I see also Kalima Mayeko, sorry, I'll respond to that. There are the couple of ways that we do it. I'll start with the last one. Because we do, after the COVID response team that I also chair, we did what is lessons learned report, which we submitted to DPME. And then we said the lessons that we learned from a pandemic is that we need to have a playbook. We call it a playbook. What that will inform us how to react during a pandemic. I'll make the example of a municipality that we went to, just outside between Eastern Cape and the Free State. We went to a school. This school in 2018 had 100% pass rate for matric. In 2019, it had a 98% pass rate for matric. In 2020, it had a 19% pass rate. What makes this school bad and perform badly is that there is no connectivity in the area that we went to whatsoever. It's a rural community. there's not even a single shack. There is maybe a population of about maybe 30, 40,000 people. And the school before attendance was Monday to Sunday. The local councillors met with the mayor, with the city manager and the speaker. They said, because we've always got by without technology, we didn't know how best to contact anyone. And then we said, no, but there are, for purposes of education, now making the example about education, we have the Department of Basic Education that from our side has been allocated tablets and connection, let's say the dongles for, especially for teachers that are in specific areas. We call it underserviced areas. This is what you need to do. We discovered that the school was allocated 24 laptops and no one bothered to deliver those laptops. And those laptops were allocated 5 years ago. We had to call in SETA because the network operators do not know how to fix things. So to fix and make sure because the laptop has never worked, never been opened. So you have the disjuncture that is that we sit out in where we are as in our spaces as leaders and managers, people that are in authority, forgetting that there are people that have always managed to get by, and we forget about them. So we fixed about 14 of those laptops. The last time we were there, 14 of those laptops, and we resuscitated their relationship with the government of the provincial government, DBE, because we realized that the relationship is between the district office and the teachers. It's about leave management, more small things, not about how to advance, because the school was never seen as a problem before, because there's only one high school in this area, catering for Black kids, colored, and a small a community of white people. It was quite I've never seen a school like that in my life. So it was quite one of those rural kind of setup. So you have that context. Then moving to these local government elections and the looming possible lockdown, you'll notice this, Kubeshni, that it is not possible for South Africa to be on full lockdown again. We just need to get that, all of us, that is not possible. We just have to plan on the new normal. Why it is not possible? It is because of how we have struggled and continue to struggle. I saw a comment here, as especially women and people having lost jobs. We will go by managing with the pandemic around us. So it's one of the suggestions that we keep making at NetJoins, that it's not possible to close the country. Just an example, tourism lost 72% of revenue and uptake of tourism. We are one of the fortunate countries in Africa because we have local tourism. Some countries do not have. That's why they are not closing. So for planning for local government elections, we started in KSD. We had a session in KSD with the management team, because I am no politician, I will not pretend to be one, with the management team, just to ready them for the digital wave that keeps missing them, as to what are the small things that they can do as a municipality in order to reach out for services for their people that are still on 2G. We developed, made sure that they have policy documents for connectivity. We made sure that as a municipality, they are able to apply and access funding in institutions such as IDC, wherein some areas do not qualify as underserviced areas, because we have what we call the Universal Service and Access Fund. It cannot access all areas because it has to be across all 7 provinces, excluding Gauteng and Western Cape because they are excluded in terms of the calculation for Universal Service and Access Fund. So you have that as an alternative. So each and every municipality, when I say municipality, I mean communities at a management level have a number of alternatives in terms of accessing funding for their communities, not necessarily for councillors. For councillors, the thing that you recall is the issue of data must fall insofar as ICASA. The data prices have fallen, but they have fallen not to a level that, according to our, because you have us as the national department, and then you have a regulator, according to our studies, that they are supposed to be lower than where they are supposed to be. And we have shared our results with ICASA on the data pricing. We have shared our results insofar as which areas are not connected as compared to the population of that is available in those areas. So we do that because we are very cognizant that we are not the implementers, where there are bodies that have been created in government to implement the policies of government. That's why I mentioned the Universal Service and Access. ISUSASA, they have this fund. And this fund, if you go to the fund, it has been highly underutilized, not because of anything, because maybe we cannot access it or they are not putting out adverts. Last year, they returned funds to National Treasury after we had identified for them areas that needed to access just basic television services. For example, television and radio. When we were on level 5, if you remember, there was an area between KZN and Eastern Cape wherein young people were up in arms saying schools must open. We do not have access to smart devices. We do not have access to anything. And then we said, okay, the next best option is to get them television sets. So, and because television, you are able to get a radio playing on your, we have what is called digital migration. You are able to access about 50 radio stations in South Africa. When we made this call and we told them how to do it, we gave them the plan, still that was not implemented. So you have that disjuncture because they said, look, there is disagreements within the owners, within the communities. That's why I'm saying, for me, the easiest way wherein there is loss of connectivity in terms of rural people is to, one, especially for ease of information, is to make sure that each and every district has a radio license, because you are able to disseminate information. It's not only about access to cell phone, because cell phone needs data, needs this and the other. And for having a radio station, the funding with the MTDA is as easy as pie. The application at ICASA is just as registration. So you need to look at other alternatives so that you get to the bigger goal. So, somebody will talk about leapfrogging. So I say in South Africa, we don't have the luxury of leapfrogging because we're so far behind. We have to start somewhere in order for us to make sure that our people have access to the basic services that they need. So just an example, Gauteng has the highest concentration of community radio licenses. Highest, you name it. You have Chinese, you have Islam, you have Christian, but it shouldn't have any political connotation to it. It can have Christian, it can have community, it can have cultural, but you cannot make it to have political connotations to it. So, and they have discovered that this is the way to reach out for purposes of schooling election, because during election there's airtime that is allocated for electioneering. That's what is happening. Instead of saying we don't have access to network, we don't have access to data, what is the easiest thing, considering elections are in 2-3 months' time happening? What are the quick wins that you can realize in order to meet your community quickly? Something that can be easily within reach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nomviso. And I'm aware that we're 2 minutes to 10, and I know that we had an hour with you. So maybe by means of closeout, Kali and Mayeko, I think that the question of what opportunities exist for upskilling and reskilling is a multifaceted one. I will ask Pam if we could share some information from NAMISA from a council's perspective. What we're hearing is that there's the USASA fund that is available for communities to be able to try and access. So there's an opportunity there to try and look at that. And then I'm hearing with regard to local government and what we might do from a campaigning perspective is perhaps lean on community radio stations that do have a footprint in our communities. So I'm sure that the councillors on this call are well aware of their local radio stations, but to lean on them perhaps even more during this time. I'm also hearing perhaps a little bit of sadness, Nomviso, but it doesn't surprise me that in terms of how it is we bridge the digital divide. It's not just about providing tablets, laptops, and TVs into a space where there has been nothing. And that perhaps what local councillors can assist with is making sure that the needs and how it is technology finds resonance in particular local spaces is navigated. Because otherwise we are going to have a situation where you have the premier opening a brand spanking new technology school 1 week, and in a month this thing is stripped. I think there was a really sad case in Gauteng. It made my heart bleed about it. But it's about how it is we use our local councillors to create and to make communities aware of how it is that we can actually take ownership of these resources, so that we can keep the baddies out and we can use it for what it's intended to use. But I think the expectation that we can land technology in a non-mediated, in a non-interventionist way is going to create us more trouble than it is anything else. So I think I urge local councillors to think about how it is they can play that role as a joining force for pieces. And then ending on a note, Irene, I hear you. Irene says that this digital world is a wonderful way to connect, even for us councillors. From a rural perspective, it saves time and fuel, but sadly, you have to drive miles to get a signal. And from a government perspective, there's the issue of training and the logistics around that, and of course taking into account that you're going to need to pull out a little bit more money from a treasury perspective to get connected. So I'm hearing, Irene, that there are possibilities here, and I think this is perhaps the note that we end off this conversation with, that there are immense possibilities. I mean, I have 3 solid pages of opportunities that I work in this communication sector that I didn't know existed. The CETA piece, the DOG piece, the POPIA piece, NAMISA, 5G spectrum, the blueprint. There's so much happening here. So I think the first thing perhaps we need to do, councillors at a local level, is just get informed. So this was a beautiful opportunity, Pam and team, for us to speak to somebody who's at the center of all of this, and that's the big piece about it. Let's get this information, and then let's see where we fit. Let's see where local government fit. Let's see where the opportunities for the next cohort of local government councillors fit in. And and let's embrace what is going to be. I mean, I'm tired of hearing the new normal. I'm tired of hearing what we're pivoting to, but things are going to have to be different, councillors. They are different already, and I think these technology provides us, as Irene says, with the beautiful opportunity to embrace something that it can intensify our work and who we are. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your participation. I know under really difficult circumstances. I can see guys have been popping in and out of the call. I know that we're load shedding, so really grateful for your time and your effort to be here today. I'm told by Pam Yako that information on the next seminar will be forthcoming in due time. And I wish you all the best with your campaigning. I wish you all the best with the pieces of work that you're going to be involved in closing out this term and opening up a new one. Thank you, and on behalf of the conference organizers, we're now going to close this session. Have a great day further. Bye-bye.